Hi, my name's Debbie Eberwine, and I am going to do a demonstration of session 7 of cognitive processing therapy. My client is a 28-year-old Caucasian female who was in a head-on car accident 8 months ago. She was injured, and her cousin was riding with her, and her cousin sustained a TBI and was very badly injured. So she is struggling with symptoms of PTSD and also guilt, her cousin being injured like she was injured. So, well, hi Emily, thank you for being here today.
It's
I'm
good
glad
to
you
be
came
here.
back. How are things going?
They're going okay.
Going okay?
Yeah.
Well, you made significant improvement this week when you filled out your assessment. I'm going to show you the improvements you've made. When you first came, your PTSD score was a 75 on the PCL-5, which measures your symptoms. And you can see it went down a little bit. Then it went up on week 3, which can be normal, because that's after you did your first trauma impact statement, and that can be very difficult. But it has gradually reduced, and today you were down to a 43. So you're doing well. Can you tell that you're doing better? Are your symptoms being reduced and doing better?
Yeah, there's less intrusive thoughts going on and less bad dreams. Those have kind of gone down a lot.
That's good. Yeah. That's wonderful. Well, I know last week we talked about you filling out your stuck point log. You've been doing that every week, and you'd left these with the front desk, and so she gave those to me to look over. And so this week you had only 2 items on your stuck point log, which is quite an improvement, because I know when we first started you had several. You had like 10 or 12, and we've been gradually working through those every week. So this week you had written down that you're afraid that it's going to happen again. Explain that. What do you mean by it's going to happen again?
A car accident.
Car accident.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something. It's likely, or more likely than
That's
other
understandable.
things. Yeah,
I could completely understand that. And the second one you wrote down is "It's my fault."
Yeah, I got some bad news. Kind of. My cousin's just his condition. Sometimes it improves, sometimes it gets worse, and he just hasn't been doing well this week. So that's kind of been a little triggering for me.
I can understand that completely. Well, between the 2 of these, which one is more distressing? Which one would you like to work with today?
Probably the thought that it'll happen all over again, that it may happen to me or somebody else that's riding with me this time,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a good idea. Okay. Well, we've been working on these challenging question worksheets, and so we're going to write at the top here, it's going to happen again. And what kind of evidence do you have for this happening again? And when we look at evidence, remember, we're looking at evidence that would stand up in a court of law.
Okay.
So we're looking at hard evidence, not feelings, not because you feel it's going to happen again, but what's a good piece of evidence?
I mean, car accidents happen all the time, every day. There's always, especially in a town, as big as this, there's sirens going all the time because of something, Okay.
How about some evidence against that this could take place?
I don't know. I mean, the likelihood that it would happen to me again, I guess, is diminished, but it still could.
Okay. Well, why don't we write down the likelihood of it happening to me? Okay. So, do you think that your interpretation of the situation, the way you're looking at it, the way you're interpreting it, do you think it's accurate? Or do you think it could possibly be kind of far removed from reality?
It's probably somewhere in the middle, because, I mean, a car accident isn't something that's totally out there.
How about, have you thought about how long have you been driving?
Mm,
How old were
12
you?
years, I
12
guess.
years? You've been
Yeah.
driving about 12 years?
I started
And,
learning 12 years ago. Been actually driving for 10.
okay. And how many auto accidents have you experienced like this?
Like this, just the one?
Just the one?
Yeah.
Do you have very many family members or friends who have experienced this?
Maybe just one friend.
Just one friend?
Yeah.
It's not quite as likely as you think it might be.
Maybe.
Possibility.
Yeah.
Something to think
possible.
about. And when we look at this challenging question worksheets, are you thinking in all or none terms? In other words, I'm either going to get in an accident like this again or I'm not. There's nothing in between.
I mean, yeah, but that is
Yeah.
kind of the case of it.
It is.
Yeah.
And I figured that was probably what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think it's possible that you might be taking the situation out of context and just focusing on one certain part of the event? In other words, what could something like that be? Somebody's gonna run a signal again and cross over and hit me again, or do you think that could be out of context, that it's the chances of it are very high every time I go out and try to go somewhere?
Not necessarily that the chances are high.
Okay. Is that what you think, though? Is kind of?
I mean, I don't really put it in like terms of chances. It's just I guess I'm just overly anxious that it will happen, and I try to take precautions. I know people behind me get so annoyed because I like wait even after the light's green to make sure nobody else is coming through.
I could understand that. Okay. So another thing that can happen sometimes is we can confuse low probability with high probability. So when we've experienced a trauma, and especially something like a car accident, we can think there's a high probability that it's going to happen when we get out driving. We get afraid that there's going to be another accident again, and where really the probability is really probably pretty low. Do you think that you would have another accident since you've been driving all these years and it hasn't happened but this one time?
I mean, I guess not, but I mean,
something to think about.
Yeah.
Got to think about it. That makes sense. Well, that's, and that's some things to think about with your challenging questions. And, after we look at those and what we're doing, I know you'll recognize this sheet because I've shown it to you. Really started fully filling it out yet. But our goal is we're working toward filling out this full challenging belief worksheets. So you have A, B, and C from our ABC sheets we've done in the past. So the situation is, of course, your car accident. And your thought, in fact, why don't we fill this out right now while we're working together?
Okay.
So it says to describe the event or the thought or believing leading to the unpleasant emotions. So looking at your car accident. And the thought that
I guess that's the thought.
That's the thought.
Yeah.
It'll happen again. So from between 0 and 100%, 0 being not at all, 100% being the worst case scenario, or thinking about it constantly, believing it fully, how much do you believe this thought that it'll happen again at this point?
Like 90%.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay. Okay, well, you can write 90% in there. And what are your emotions right now? Are you feeling sad, anxious, angry, afraid?
Like fearful, anxious, yeah.
And if you have more than one, you can write more than one emotion in there. And after the emotion, rate them too, from 0 to 100%. 0 being not fearful at all, 100% being the most fearful you could possibly be.
I'm very fearful of it.
Okay.
Most fearful I could probably be at the thought of it. I'd probably say 90% again.
Okay. How about anxious?
I mean, it's similar. Probably 85-90%.
Okay. So you're very, very fearful and very anxious.
Yeah.
This thought really.
It's been a step point. I think I've written it down every week.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's okay. We're going to work on it.
Yeah.
So we kind of went through these
Yes.
challenge questions already, the
Mhm.
evidence for and the evidence against, and we can look at that. The evidence for you were looking at was that accidents happen.
Mhm.
They just happen every day. Evidence against, well, maybe it isn't going to happen again, but this is one that's not real strong.
Mhm.
Habit or fact, do you think that this thought could possibly be a habit, that you could be in the habit of thinking of this thought, that it's become a habit of it's going to happen again when you go out?
I mean, yeah, that is something I think every time I get in the car.
Because it's really probably not a fact, do you think? Every time you get in the car that you're going to have an accident?
No, it's just based on the one experience.
Yeah. And we looked at interpretations,
Mhm.
not accurate. Actually, we looked at pretty much all of these. Okay. So today, one of the things we're going to look at this next one. We're going to look at problematic patterns of thinking. And a lot of times when we've experienced a trauma, it's very natural to have problematic ways of thinking about things, because what trauma does is it affects the way we see ourselves and others and the world around us. And one of the things we do, just as a natural result, is experience these. These are just some of the problematic ways we can think about things. So one of the things we can do is we can jump to conclusions even when the evidence is lacking, or even if the evidence is contrary to it. So do you see in some way how the thought, it'll happen again, could possibly be jumping to conclusions?
Yeah, it's just automatically making that assumption that it will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as we talked about before, the chances of it happening again aren't really, in reality, really very high. So, and then another pattern is exaggerating or minimizing. So we can make the incident bigger in our mind than it really is, or we can minimize it and say, well, it really wasn't all that bad. Do you see in any way that maybe you're...
I don't feel like that one really applies to me because it was a bad accident.
I don't think you are either,
Yeah.
because you're not minimizing it,
No,
and I don't believe
I'm
you're
not.
exaggerating. So that's one that I don't believe applies
Okay.
to you. Disregarding important aspects of the situation. So that could be something as simple as what we talked about earlier. You've been driving for many, many years, and this hasn't happened before. And how many of your friends and family and people that level, that serious of an accident has taken place. You can figure, how many hours have you driven, like in the last 10 years?
I don't
If there's 365 days in a year, and if you've driven a couple hours roughly each day, I mean, we're getting up big 10,000s of hours in this one incident. So that's part of the disregarding important aspects. I wouldn't necessarily think that you were oversimplifying, but that's another thing that can happen, where you oversimplify something as being or right or wrong and no in between. I don't believe that one applies. Overgeneralizing. So overgeneralizing is when you take a single incident, and it's a negative incident that has a negative impact, and you take it and across the board, you apply it across the board to everything else that is similar to that incident.
Yeah, I think
Do you
I
see
do
that
that
taking place?
Yeah, I do.
So by taking that car accident, you're overgeneralizing that, every time I go out, this is maybe going to happen to me. It's going to happen to me again.
Yeah.
I don't believe that mind reading applies.
Mm-mm.
Emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is when you make choices based on how you feel, based on your feelings. I don't know if you remember, but when we first started, remember when we talked about there's a difference between thoughts and feelings? They're two
Mhm.
separate things. You know, your feelings are your emotions, you know, happy, sad, mad, glad, all of those.
Mhm.
And those are just, those come and go. Don't really control them, you know.
Mhm.
And then you have your thoughts, which it'll happen again as a thought.
Mhm.
Your thoughts change, and then as you change your thoughts, the emotions will come on and follow suit.
Okay.
But a lot of times, and this isn't even just in trauma, this is with everyday life with everyone, you think just because you have a certain feeling, so when you get in the car and you immediately feel that anxiety,
Mhm.
you immediately think it's not safe for me to go out there because
Mhm.
I'm feeling this uncomfortable anxiety, you know,
Mhm.
this fear. So that's what emotional reasoning is. It's reasoning why you shouldn't go out and drive based on how you're
Yeah, I make excuses not to get
feeling.
out all the time.
Yes, that's a very natural thing to do.
Mhm.
You know. So, you know, after we fill this part out, so the next thing that we do that's really helpful is based on looking at our challenging thoughts and based on looking at our problematic patterns of thinking and taking all this into consideration. Here's where the heavy lifting work comes in.
Okay.
What else can I say instead of column B? What else could I say possibly besides it'll happen again? What's another way, you know, I could think about this? What's another way I could see this situation?
I don't know. It can happen again. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean it will for sure.
Okay.
But,
You could write that down. It can happen, but it doesn't mean it will. Do you have anything else?
I'm trying to think.
That's okay. You
I
don't
feel
have
like
to
that one's
hurry.
not that positive.
Aw.
um,
Well, and be sure to include, but it doesn't mean it will, because that's important.
Yeah.
You can just write it doesn't mean it will. Are there some other, you know, be thinking about some other ways that you could, and if you can't think of anything right now,
yeah.
it's okay, because I'm going to send you home with this for
Mhm.
homework, and you can continue to work on this one, and if any other stuck points come on, the other stuck point we didn't go over today, this too.
Okay.
So you have one alternate thought. It can happen, but it doesn't mean it will. So just because there's the possibility
Mhm.
doesn't mean it will. And really, the chances, how likely are the chances that that'll happen again?
It's probably not very.
Okay. So after we do this, we look at, we re-rate this old thought after we do all this work.
Mhm.
So how much do you believe that thought now?
In the old one.
In the old one, how much do you, from 0 being not at all to 100% being I believe it completely, how much do you believe at this point
Probably
it'll happen again?
50% maybe.
That's a large reduction.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
mean,
very considerable
it's,
reduction.
I don't know. I feel like I might be going back to that black and white. Even
Yeah.
it will or it won't. So.
Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Okay.
Things to change.
Yeah.
And you're doing really, really well. That's really good.
Mhm.
So look at all of this. What emotions do you feel now?
I mean, I still feel anxious about the
Mhm.
possibility
Mhm.
of it happening, but I mean, there's
That's
a little more reassurance, I guess, is what I'm
okay.
feeling.
That's okay. Well, you can write down anxious and anything else that you're feeling. You can write it down there and re-rate it again between 0% being no anxiety at all to 100% the worst anxiety
Okay.
you've ever experienced, and the reassurance. You know, same thing. 0 low and
So, how reassured do I feel?
100% would be completely.
Mm-hmm.
0 would be I don't feel reassured at all.
Okay, I'll probably do
Okay. Well, I think that's really good.
Okay.
Do you see the progress?
that. Yeah, there's some.
You've made a progress, and this makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You know, just the fact that you reduced your anxiety 15% is a lot.
Mhm.
There's a lot of anxiety, and it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay to have that anxiety. And the important thing is when you go out to drive, it's okay that you feel the anxiety, go ahead and feel the anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
but push through and tell yourself these reassuring, as you come up with these reassuring thoughts, you use self-talk and you can practice, okay, even though it can happen, it doesn't mean it will.
Yeah.
And you can say that. Go ahead and practice saying that.
Just because it can happen doesn't mean it will.
Right. So when you get in your car, because I know one of the things you want to do is you want to drive again. You want to feel comfortable driving again. And that may take some time, and that's okay. Every little bit is progress. We can work on that too. But when you get in the car, you just tell yourself that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen again. Okay? So you did really well. And I'll send you home, with some of these.
Okay.
And more stuck point logs.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be
more
to work
there's
on.
there's always something to work on. And so as you think of things throughout the week, just write them down on your stuck point log, and then do a challenging belief worksheet for each stuck point log, and we'll go over those next week. Okay. So the other thing I was going to go over with you today is we're going to start the safety module.
Okay.
When you experience a trauma, there's 5 areas of your life that it changes, and it's safety, trust, power and control, esteem, intimacy, and there's one other, and I just lost it. I'm so sorry. Safety, power and control, esteem. There's a 5th one that I can't think of right now. But for today we're going to look at safety. So we've got this one. When you experience something traumatic, it really alters your belief when it comes to safety. And we're going to look at beliefs related to yourself first. So, and a lot of this has to do with what your prior experience is. So if your prior experiences with safety are negative, so if in your past you've been repeatedly exposed to dangerous and uncontrollable situations, then you may develop negative beliefs already about being able to protect yourself. But then if you've had positive prior experiences, you may develop the belief that you have control over most events and can protect yourself from harm. And what happens is the traumatic event causes disruption in this belief. Would you say that accurately describes?
Yeah.
So symptoms associated with negative self-safety is chronic and persistent anxiety, which we've talked about, intrusive thoughts about themes of danger, irritability, startle responses or physical arousal, intense fears related to future victimization.
Yeah,
it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
So this will help normalize and let you know that what you're experiencing is normal. It's a normal process of trauma. So if you previously believed it can't happen to me, you're going to need to between this belief and what happened to you. And look, this is really good because this is so close to which on your own you came up with it. It's unlikely to happen again, but the possibility exists. Yeah. You did really well. You did really well. If you previously believed I can control what happens to me and protect myself from any harm, then you'll need to work with that, and you can say, I don't have control over everything that happens, but I can take precautions to reduce the possibility of future traumatic events. So you can take precautions when you go out, and drive.
Yeah.
If you previously believed you had no control over events and the traumatic event will confirm these beliefs. But I don't believe that fits you, does it? You're a pretty confident person. Yeah, that's good. So I will give you that to take home.
Okay.
And then real quick, we'll look at beliefs related to others and how they change. Okay. And again, you can tell me which applies. If you experience people as dangerous early in life, did you experience that? No. People were safe.
Yeah.
Okay. So you may expect others to keep you safe and not cause harm. The traumatic event caused a disruption in this. So symptoms are avoidant or phobic responses and social withdrawal, which you had shared with me. You've been avoidant and that you've withdrawn socially because you're afraid to even get in a car with someone to go anywhere. So, and it seems to me like your trauma, it's not so much that you're afraid of people. Yours is more with yourself, that you're concerned that it's going to happen again. So, but I will still give this to you, even though it really doesn't fully apply. So, Anyway, so we went over things today. We looked at your trauma scores,
Mm-hmm.
and they've greatly improved. You
Mhm.
made really great progress, which is wonderful. We looked at your stuck point list that you did, and we took the one that was the most difficult, did the challenging belief worksheet with it, and reduced your symptoms significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at safety issues. And for homework next week, I'd like you to keep filling out your stuck point log.
Okay.
I'd like for you to take those and choose the ones that are most distressing
Mhm.
and fill out your challenging belief worksheets.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any questions or concerns for me?
No, I feel good.
You're doing
Yeah.
really wonderful. You're making really excellent progress. Thank you.